Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our second lecture of 2025. Joe Ezra will shortly be talking about Cornish smuggling, organised crime, or radical romance, the free trade during the 18th and 19th centuries. But before that, I will be exploring how smuggling has impacted one of our church's conservation trust churches in Kent. And so this talk will focus on the church itself, and then I'll go on to the connections to the fascinating history of smuggling in the area of Kent. If you don't know me, my name is Vicky Jenner and I host the members' lectures for the Church's Conservation Trust. Let's deep dive into this church, shall we? So this picture postcard church stands hidden by trees in a delightful setting by the Little Stour. If you don't know this, this is All Saints Church in West Stourmouth. And as you approach, the first thing you notice is the small spire and bell tower, and followed by that really beautiful flint, that ragstone and that brickwork of the church. And you can see it in the top left as a focus and as a detail. There is strong evidence of Saxon origins, incorporating Roman bricks in its walls. And so the church was damaged in an earthquake in 1382, and then it was subsequently rebuilt. And although the building is very, very simple, it's made of ragstone, flint, and brick with a nave, chancel, south aisle, and a small wooden bell tower. Inside, the church is furnished with the most beautiful box pews, which we will see in a moment, some featuring exquisite carvings and a 17th century pulpit and a very handsome organ that still bears its original pumping lever. And then we also have the very beautiful tiled flooring, which contains three intriguing memorial stones, which we will see in a moment. Here we are in its beautiful setting. So let's hear a little bit about the church's location and its local history. Situated in Stourmouth, this church is part of an area that has a very long and layered history. So Stourmouth itself is a rural farming parish, rich in crops and orchards, but historically it was also shaped by its waterways. So the nearby River Stour, known to the Romans as Stourmouth, once connected with the Wonsum Channel, which until around 1500 separated the Isle of Thanet from the mainland. And this river network made the area ideal for smuggling operations. So ferries ran across the estuary, and hidden landing points offered perfect opportunities for illicit trade. The gently curving coastline between Romney Marsh and the Isle of Thanet was well supplied with shingle or sand beaches, making it easy to draw up boats unnoticed. And this entire area has been steeped in smuggling since the early days of the wool trade, long before import smuggling became widespread. So let's have a bit of a discussion about the exterior of this very beautiful church. We have this great bird's eye view on the left, and then we just have some little details on the rest of the slide, including the font, which we'll talk about a bit later too. So the exterior of the church boasts fine flint work, which we can see here, and it even includes Roman bricks incorporated into repairs over the centuries, which I find wonderful. This sense of returning back to this ancient Roman brickwork and bringing it back into the fabric of the church later on. Isn't it wonderful? So it's a very peaceful setting, as you can see here, surrounded by farmland and close to the river, but it belies the dramatic history that unfolded in the area. The church features then this 15th century porch with its original door just on the bottom left. So let's go inside the church. So beside the entrance is a worn 13th century coffin lid, while on the inner face of the doorway is a royal coat of arms from the reign of George III in a very peculiar pyramidal frame. And you can sort of see that just at the back in the background of this frame here. To the west of the door stands the octagonal font, which we saw in the last slide here. Isn't it absolutely beautiful? So this is likely Victorian or perhaps an earlier piece, but smugglers and their networks would have passed by this church, perhaps using the landscape to their advantage. And this is what I want to jump back into and connect, as that's what Joe will be talking about in a moment. So like many isolated churches in Kent, It may have served as a meeting point or a place to store contraband before it was transported inland. Nearby, the town of Deal became infamous for smuggling in the 18th century, and smugglers there were so numerous that the British government sent troops to destroy all of the town's boats in 1785. Can you believe it? And despite this, smuggling persisted, with goods often spirited away into underground tunnels or hidden compartment buildings. So as we explore further inside this very beautiful church, wow, just look at how beautiful it is, especially in this very wide angled image on the right. So stepping inside the church, we can see here the wooden box pews and the pulpit, characteristic of centuries of parish worship. The memorial brass to Reverend Thomas Merries, who died in around 1472, is still in here, and it reminds us of the very long history of this place. Another very notable memorial is that of Thomas Beake, whose inscription describes him as cheerful and obliging, a sweet-tempered, virtuous man. So I do wonder what he may have thought of the smuggling trade happening around him in this area, gosh. And during the height of the smuggling trade, it was not uncommon for communities, including church congregations, to be deeply involved in illicit activities. Some local churches were even rumoured to have been used for hiding contraband, with tunnels linking them to smuggling hideouts. As you can see here on the left, we have an image of the very richly carved pews at the west end of the church, and they are so beautiful, particularly the 19th century examples featuring paper mache friezes and bosses, which, yes, you can see here on the left. And they are done so well done that they are difficult to distinguish from the original wood. And we also have thick timber beams inserted in the 14th century, supporting the weight of the bell tower above, while a block Saxon window remains the only original window in the church. And on the northwest nave arcade, there's a very peculiar monument to Carl Colmer, whose date of death appears as the 10th of January, 1835, 100 years and 9 days after his birth. Very intriguing. However, due to the calendar adjustment in 1752, he was technically just 2 days short of a century. So we never know. That could be accurate. The chancel features a series of 18th century text boards with biblical verses and a cut down 15th century wooden screen. And there is also this very beautifully preserved Jacobean pulpit, adding to this very historic atmosphere. And the south chancel window showcases fragments of medieval glass gathered by James Powell and Son, who also designed the colourful east window in 1846. And we're seeing glimmers of this in this picture here. So let's dive back into some smuggling stories and history of the area, shall we? So Stourmouth was a key location in Kent's smuggling pass. The infamous North Kent gang operated in this region during the early 19th century. And these smugglers were not only, they weren't really the romanticized figures that we see here in this image, or even in literature, but they were well-organized criminals who would not hesitate to use violence to protect their trade. One of their key crossing points was Pluck's Gutter. What a wonderful name, where the notorious gang transported goods across the river. And in the early 1800s, they used it to smuggle all sorts of things, from brandy, tobacco, other contraband, sometimes in full view of the authorities. And then we have here on the left, you can see the Dog and Duck Hotel of Stourmouth. So this was the nearby inn. It was established in 1913, and it still bears the name of F.A. White's Stourmouth Brewery, which was known for supplying local pubs. White's Brewery was heavily involved in the beer trade, but some of these operations blurred into smuggling networks, with beer barrels sometimes hiding illicit goods. And then further along the coast, you may know this iconic place. Of course, it is the White Cliffs of Dover. And it is here where smugglers clashed violently with authorities. In 1826, an attempt to land goods on the beach resulted in a firefight that left one blockade officer dead. And the leader of the gang, George Ransley, was eventually captured and transported all the way to Tasmania. So this is just a snippet into the smuggling history and also just a quick tour of one of our many beautiful churches. You can help us protect this church and many like it. So our churches cost on average £2,500 a year to keep them clean, carry out conservation work, conduct maintenance checks, and ensure they are just in a safe condition for visitors to enjoy. You can help us today by donating a gift of £5 or £10, simply by donating quickly and easily by texting the numbers below. Or here you can see on our frame here. And you can donate by text simply by just texting WST in capitals to 70970 to give £5, or the same WST to 70191 to give £10. Thank you so much. It is very greatly appreciated. And if you are new to our membership offer, then please do make use of all of these wonderful things. Of course, you are not just protecting over 1,000 years of history and saving all of these wonderful churches in the UK, but you also receive all of these other benefits as well that can keep you up to date with what we're doing at the Churches Conservation Trust. So I do urge you to keep a lookout for the members newsletter and also all of the annual review, and keep an eye on what is being uploaded onto CCT Digital. Okay, so now the time we have been waiting for, I'm going to pass over to a pre-recorded lecture with Dr. Jo Ezra, and she will be presenting her lecture on Cornish smuggling, organised crime, or radical romance. I want you to keep that question in your head as you're watching. So this is, of course, all about the free trade during the 18th and 19th centuries, and I believe she's going to be focusing in the area of Cornwall. So Jo is a senior lecturer in early modern English and culture at the University of Exeter. Her research spans maritime history, smuggling, pirates, and the supernatural in early modern literature. Please do enjoy the lecture, and please place your questions below in the comments of this video on CCT Digital, and I'll be sending them over to Jo Ezra to answer. Thank you very much. Take care.